Now, I do believe that Joe Frizo, our esteemed producer, is giving us in real time that the White Sox have just got Oscar Brazoban from my Metropolitans, and he's had a really good year in New York. And the Mets are going to get back some prospects here, Gabe Davis, Zach Franklin. And so the White Sox, this is from Jim Bowden, by the way. We're going to hear from Jim a little bit later on in this program, too. But, Jensen, what do you make of that on the short term here? Because Brazoban has been a really good reliever for the Mets, one of their few bright spots to go along with Luke Weaver in the back end of that bullpen.
Yeah, beautiful addition, right? So Seranthony Dominguez out to Seattle to get Luis Castillo. Well, they go right back and basically plug, if not improve, that spot vacated from Dominguez with Huascar Brazoban, a really good power right-hander who's going to slot in really well, setting up for Grant Taylor. Sean Newcomb, of course, along with Brian Hudson, there are two lefties there, and then Jordan Hicks, who has been just a revelation for them, has been nearly unhittable the last couple of weeks there. So good deep bullpen. That's how you win in October, Dave. You generate swing and miss, especially from your power leverage relievers. Good trade here for the White Sox, and the Mets will get a couple of prospects going back there from the Southsiders.
Actually, Jensen, nice scoop by you. You got that out there from your buddy Jim Bowden. And by the way, Jim gave the White Sox a B, and for David Stearns and the Mets, he gave him a C-. Can we win any trades, Jensen? Can the Mets and David Stearns win one trade in the last 2 years?
I think they'll be honest, and I'm not saying because it's you, but I think the Luke Weaver trade will get them a pretty nice haul. I really do. Just knowing what certain clubs will pay for back-end leverage relievers. If Maury Hone doesn't go today from the San Diego Padres, Luke Weaver is probably that one other setup guy / closer that some club will probably pay pretty handsomely for.
When you get to the point, Jensen, where you're just exhausted talking about a team, or that's where Met fans are right now with David Stearns and the Metropolitans, just exhausted by losing every single trade seemingly out there. At least that's what the grades are. Let's talk more about some of the trades and the big one that happened over the weekend here with Tarik Skubal and what that means for everybody else in the National League. That's where we begin today's edition of the Daily Diamond. Okay, we know what it means for the Dodgers going for the three-peat. They're odds on to win the pennant. They're just over, about plus $1.50 to win the World Series. I mean, ridiculous prices that we're seeing out there, but you can understand it when you add a guy like Tarik Skubal to the front end of your rotation. Now, what does it mean for the other teams that didn't get a Skubal, right? And we're kind of looking at the Brewers. We'll talk about the Phillies, the Braves, those other teams in the mix here in the National League that we think could be the obvious challengers to L.A. in pursuit of that three-peat. Trevor McGill, very talented right-hander we know for the Milwaukee Brewers, had some very interesting comments once this deal was made official with Skubal going to the Dodgers.
I don't think anybody's surprised he went there. When they came out the other day and said they're going to be greedy, I think the whole world can take that serious, and that they would probably make that happen. So I don't think anybody's shocked about that. The talks, we just joke around with mock trades here and there, but it's our job just to play baseball and the team they give us and the guys in this room. So, we've seen Matt here, a lot in the last couple of days. I'm sure he's pretty busy, but we're just being patient, seeing what happens, and if not, let's just go with what we got.
And if not, just go with what we got. That sounds a little gallows humorish there, which I miss in my Marine Corps days because some of the things you say there with your brethren, right? You're going to go to battle with your guys. And, you'd like to have more reinforcements sometimes. And so parallel worlds there a little bit here. But I understand what he's saying, Jensen. Hey, it'd be nice if you gave us reinforcements. But when the Dodgers say the Dodgers are going to do, then they go out and do it. So they are not surprised in that clubhouse. I'm sure they're not surprised in other Major League clubhouses here, Jensen. When you hear that and then you go, all right, well, this is the deck and it might be stacked against us a little bit here, but we're going to play the hand that's dealt to us here. What do you think the collective, regrouping is for the other teams that lost out in the potential Skubal sweepstakes?
Well, again, there's still plenty of reinforcements out there, not on the level of a Tarik Skubal per se. But there are opportunities. And on the starting pitching market, you're going to have to pay through the nose for some of the controllable guys. You think of Seattle, and George Kirby is a name that has surfaced here alongside Emerson Hancock. Those are two names that have been bandied about. Cade Anderson, who is the top pitching prospect in baseball, not a matter of if, matter of when he's up this year. And that's kind of the idea. First trading Luis Castillo, and then maybe if one of the other guys goes, that creates an instant rotation spot. But again, you don't want to just offload a ton of starting pitching resources, because injuries certainly a part of this spot in the year, and you're not able to acquire anything if an injury occurs after the deadline. Dave, I wanted to read this to you because everyone is talking about the Skubal trade to the Dodgers. Oh, it's going to be a lockout. We're not going to see any baseball next year. And Bryce Harper, I believe, was talking, I don't know if it was this year or in the recent couple of months, where when you remember the late 90s, and that was when the Yankee dynasty was out there. They won 4 World Series in 5 years, and it didn't seem, and maybe you can tell me more so, because I was a young lad at that point, not paying attention to what was being said in the media. But we didn't really hear too much then about, we need a salary cap, this, that, and the other. This was George Steinbrenner just saying, hey, I expect to win every year, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to win every year. The Dodgers have done a really good job in the last decade. Yes, do they have a revenue share exploitation because of the change in ownership and how that whole thing went down legally? Yes, they do. But what else have they done, Dave? They've perfected their farm system. They're able to deal from depth. And if they overvalue some prospects that other teams are like, oh, yeah, we think they're better than what they really are, that's part of it. We see bad trades all the time in football, in basketball. This happens. But year in and year out, every fan base, and I'll credit Jim Bowden because I heard him saying it yesterday on Elmi Network Radio when I was driving home with Michelle, and he said, every fan base, if you're a Dodger fan, you love your front office. You love your ownership group. Why? Because they're trying to win every year. They're not like, we're going to wait for 2027. I don't think we can run it back this year. Yeah, guys are getting a little bit older. No, they're going for it every year. They are sending prospects for proven players. That's how you win. If your prospects end up hitting, great. But when you have guys that have proven at the big league level and are some of the best in the game, you go get them. That's how you win. This isn't rocket science. This isn't because of a salary cap, at least on the trade front. Now, I get the whole free agency side of it, and that's a separate argument. Right. But as far as this trade and at this deadline, you can't convince me that other teams who are contenders couldn't have put up a far better deal to try and get Tarek Skubal on their team.
It's ironic, and I really am showing my age, but there were those discussions around the Yankees and those teams in specifics. You mentioned, go out and get a Reggie Jackson. I remember in the 80s with Danny Tartable came over from the Royals, and that was like such a big deal. It didn't pan out. They didn't win. But because they didn't win enough in the 80s, they still spent the money. Like George still spent, and you knew if you're a free agent that George had the best chance to get you, even the Ricky Hendersons in the day. He came to New York for a while. So you saw that in the George Steinbrenner era. So it did exist, Jensen, but not to this degree. And I think now with the landscape, the way it's changed, and because the Dodgers are now winning, hey, if the Dodgers hadn't won back-to-back World Series, maybe the talk dies down a little bit and becomes almost a punchline. You spend all the money and yet you don't win. That kind of became the Yankees a little bit in the 80s. Then they flipped their fortunes again in the 90s, as we all saw towards the back end of that decade. But it is with the winning. And I think that's where people now start to say, this is unfair. So it really is in that context now that they go, man, if they win a three-peat, we got to do something to stop the current system. Is that really fair to the Dodgers that have been going with, they've been, yes, they extend these contracts and they defer these payments forever. Well, other teams could do that too. They just choose not to. So I don't want to get on the Dodgers too much for competing and winning at the highest level under the current system. They change it. That's what the debate's going to be in the entirety of the offseason. But it did actually exist, maybe not to this degree, back with the Yankees and George Steinbrenner. Let's talk some football. Marty Herney is going to come back with us here on the very next segment. Yeah, we've got the Hall of Fame game coming up on Thursday, but we're really already looking ahead to week 1 and beyond. Can't wait to pick his brain on teams he might like as well. Some NFL talk with Marty Herney, RGM. It's next right here on VSiN by the Books.